Alright, what's going on? So, the last couple days I actually been doing some thinking. Like, I started to realize that I may have been kinda selfish with my previous couple comics that I worked on. And I've been sort of trying to map out in my mind how I've been able to continue on so long working on Infinite Uppercut, which is my third comic as opposed to the first two that I didn't complete or came close to for that matter. And the only thing I think I can attribute it to is that I actually made a comic that I can freely continue on, yet it's something that I can enjoy making. That probably sounds simple enough, but it's not always that simple. Or at least I find that not everybody does this, and apparently neither did I. I feel like there's a fine line between making a comic that you want to read and making a comic that other people would still want to read as well. Like, I don't feel like you can make artwork solely for, I don't know, thinking about viewers, no one's watching your comic, readers or subscribers or anything like that. Like, I don't think you can actually make a comment with only that in mind. But at the same time, you can't do the alternative route, which I found myself doing before, and that's making a comic that only you can enjoy. Which is kind of crazy because I feel like I may have done that with Infinite Uppercut. But it's like it's a comic that sort of my sensibilities are in it. It's something that I get a kick out of, so it makes it easier to keep working on. But at the same time, I feel like other people can easily read and follow along and be okay with my comic, if that makes any sense. It's not entirely self-serving, which also in the case of Infinite Uppercut, my sole purpose for this was kind of different from my other comics. Those were just completely self-serving, elaborate stories that I eventually got burnt out from and couldn't complete. With Infinite Uppercut, my only goal, and I've been saying this for the better part of 2 years now, is just to have it completed. Like, I just wanted to actually prove to myself that I can make a comic book series and actually like see it to the end, barring any like crazy life circumstances and tragedy, which in whatever case I did to the best of my abilities. I did what was in my control, so I, can't really get mad at that either. It was a sort of a grim turn that just took. But no, like I've seriously been having these weird internal conversations, especially now that I've started like slowly getting closer and closer to building a script for my new comic. It's like, where is the line between what your potential readers that don't currently exist may want and you making something that you yourself would enjoy? And I don't know if I have the answer, because this has really just been bugging me for the last couple of days. And even now as I sit and talk out loud, like, I don't really know if Infinite Uppercut is entirely not self-serving. Well, it's not. It's self-serving in its humor, because its humor is solely things that I feel like, I don't know. If it makes me laugh, I just put it in the comic. That was sort of my train of thought there. But I did actually have like the reader somewhat in mind as I was putting the comic and the story together. Like, it wasn't completely selfish of me. Whereas with Afro Brainbuster, I didn't think about the readers of that comic at all when I made that one. And with Shadow Assassins, there are so many reasons why that went off the rails. That could be an entirely different video in and of itself. But like, it's still crazy. Like, how in the world do you balance the two? Or is there a balance? Because it is also weird to think like you can't be selfish enough to not keep your readers in mind, but when you're making a comic, you don't have it. Like, your comic starts off like all comics do. It has no subscribers, it has no following, it has no views, it has no nothing. So you're essentially writing for the theoretical readers that may or may not even read your comic. So writing for people in mind that haven't even gotten a feel for your comic or anything yet, like, that in and of itself is tricky. I don't know. Maybe I feel like I'm kind of overcomplicating the art of making comics more than it already needs to be by asking these kinds of questions, but this is the weird way in which my mind works. And I don't even know how really important this conversation is. Essentially, you make the comics that you want to make, and whatever happens after that happens. But I do feel like there's this weird balance or this weird connection in making the comics that we all just want to make and put out there, between making something solely for our own amusement and our own pleasure, and making something that we know that other people will probably want to read. And oddly enough, there are a lot of creators that just selfishly they just entirely make the stories that they want to make, not even thinking about what the reader may think or feel. They just do their own thing and it works out for them. And there are also people, and I don't know how they pull this off, but they make comics with the sensibilities of the reader in mind in its entirety. So they already sort of make a comic geared towards an audience that doesn't exist. I don't know how people do that, and I can't imagine that there's many of them, but they do exist somewhere. I don't know. This making art is making comics in general is complicated. Or maybe it's not, and just I'm a lunatic. I have no idea, but it's really been taxing on my brain, and I have no idea why. It's honestly been interfering in my thought process while making comics recently. Well, I shouldn't say interfering. I've had no problem making the pages, but it's been like popping up in my head while I've been working. And I don't know. This is the craziest thing. I've also been like watching way too many interviews with different comic book artists and mangakas recently. And I don't know. Just everybody's process is so all over the place, but I feel like there's this weird connection, as I've said probably a million times already, between making art for yourself and making it for the other person. And in the end, I would have to imagine that making a comic that you would want to read would be the best solution, because making something that even you don't want to look at and read, I feel like oh my God, just saying that out loud just sounds like absolute misery. Like I couldn't imagine making a comic long term to completion that even I didn't want to read in and of itself. Like with Shadow Assassins and Brainbuster, like I just didn't want to work on those anymore and was burnt out from it, so I stopped. But I couldn't imagine not even wanting to read those comics. Like I wouldn't have been able to make it as long as I did doing those. But like working on Uppercut has been somewhat of a breeze. There was that 100 days challenge that I did, but even that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Trust me, it had its moments, but yeah, working on this has been like eons better and more pleasurable of an experience than working on Shadow Assassins or Brainbuster, which I know what I'm doing, so no matter what, it's going to be better than Shadow Assassins, because I had no clue what I was doing 6 years ago. But in comparison to Brainbuster, yeah, I'm enjoying this a whole lot more. And I'm still enjoying it because I'm still finding new ways to do things, and I'm sort of still experimenting with, I don't know, different ways to put my panels and pages together, and sort of just little different tricks to try and see if I could pull off with Infinite Uppercut, even in my final chapter, that I'm not sure I really took into account or thought about with my other comics. So who knows? In a way, I'm almost starting to feel like this whole working of Infinite Uppercut was solely to prepare me for what I'm going to do next. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much, like, good thing like we are not at the place in technology just yet where we can start reading people's thoughts and minds yet, because I don't know what anyone would see when they looked into my brain. But in any event, that's where my head has been at recently. Like I said, it's just been plaguing my mind. Like, what approach do you take to actually making or creating the story for your comic? And who do you really aim your comic for? Is it yourself or is it your audience? So, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't. And you all have a good one. And I'm out.